I am Vitreous, and recently I decided to try the challenge run Legend of Zelda Link to the Past. This challenge is to complete the game without using a sword, which is really difficult. Today I'm starting with the Eastern Palace. The main thing about this run is that I really can't use the sword, but I can use it for like the Pegasus boots when you're charging. You'll see why in later videos. I can also use the medallions that you earn, despite the fact the game won't let you use them if you don't have a sword. Also, there's reasons behind that. The other rule is I have to do the entire dungeon in one life. Once the game over screen is displayed, my run is over. I can use fairies to extend the run though. Okay, and go right through the front door. The other two doors just lead you down pits. Our first enemy is Popos. I have no clue what they're supposed to be. And into this room. You can go up here to get some rupees, but it's generally pointless. I did it anyway. Occasionally, the large marble will fall down that hall, but most of the time it's the little marbles, so you can get by hugging one of the corners, the walls. Another part of this dungeon that you can avoid is going to the right here, like I'm doing. For all this, all you get is the map. Generally pointless if you know where you're going. It is fair to point out that you can kill Still Atlas with the boomerang. Extremely helpful and very important later in this dungeon. But for most of these rooms you can just avoid them until here. Five pots, four Stalaplis. If you miss more than twice, you're pretty much down to using the boomerang there. Into this room, pick up the compass. Now into the main room of this dungeon. Or what I consider the main room of this dungeon. It's pretty much the room that looks the nicest. So nice I have 30 arrows, but no bow. Kind of a reverse of the whole original Legend of Zelda game where you have a bow, but you rarely have any arrows. Into the dark, because they gave us a lantern and they really want to show it off. Stumbling around in the dark in this room is not that hard. Ow. Pick up the key, move on. Ah! A couple enemies I haven't mentioned yet. The big green guy in the middle of the room here is an Igor. They can only be injured when their eye is open, which they only do when you get close to them. I'll show that in a minute. Very important to pick up the ice rod before trying this. It's a good weapon to have, definitely when you don't have a sword. When you kill all the enemies on the screen, boy, the anti-fairies split, leaving that pot unguarded, letting you get a chest. Anti-fairies can be a pain now, but if you get the magic powder later on in the game, you can use that to turn into regular fairies, which will heal you and can be kept in bottles later. Speaking of catching fairies in bottles, though, alright. Butterfly nets. No idea what the heck I'm doing. You go down these jars here, it'll take you to the fairy fountain of this dungeon. I'd like to say there's generally one fairy fountain hidden in each dungeon, but I'm probably wrong on that count. And with that, we have the bow. It's fair to point out that if you hit those Swordless, the ones that drop down with an arrow or the boomerang, they'll just fall apart like dry bones. Best way to kill these things is with one arrow to the eye. Ah! Again, freezing one of the popos to turn them into your own personal weapon. Best reason to have the ice rod. Ah! Main problem with the lantern, I guess, is that it doesn't show you too much behind you, so I couldn't really tell where that guy was going. Finally, guy drops the key. Let's go up the stairs, further into the palace. Arrows. Instead, there was a heart under there too. Draw. Luckily, I have a fairy, so my journey continues. Now the game starts to abuse the Igors, putting like 4 of them in a room. Okay, the max I put in a room is 3, but still, put a lot of them in rooms. Why am I going to pick that heart up? One of these tiles that looks raised opens the door in this room. There we go. Okay, final room. I think it's the final room. The door has the nice little boss insignia underneath it. Ow. It's fair to note that although you can kill the green ones with pots, the red ones are immune to it. I think I'll show you that in the next slide or so. Haha! Evil! Okay. Just have to get past these 2 Igors and... Ah! No! Didn't work. Why did that one wake up? 10 more arrows and we fight the boss. The Armorous Knights. Based upon the Armorous statues in the first game that would only wake up when you walked by them and touched them, the Armorous Knights are not a hard boss. It takes 3 arrows to kill each one. When they get into this position is when you're pretty much going to kill most of the mob. And in Standard, the boss turns red version, it gets a little bit trickier when they're all dead, but not much. He is done. Pick up the green Pendant of Courage, go on our way. That is all. To remain. I'm also gonna try to rank the difficulty of these levels as I go through them. So let's start with this one. I give the Armorous Knights a 1, and being the first boss, I kind of expected that. The thing is that they are killed with 3 arrows, and the patterns they have are simple. Even when that final one turns red, it doesn't exactly make him harder. So, a 1 for them. With that in mind, I give this level a 5. It's very tricky, mostly due to the fact that you don't have any inventory, and you can't defend yourself from some of the enemies. Plus, those 2 rooms shown in the bloopers are quite difficult to figure out if you don't know what you're gonna do. Now I believe I have to go to a library, followed by the desert, to retrieve the next pendant.